All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program. We have a very special edition of Real Money with David Holland lined up for you. And let me just dive right in here. Our guest today is Chairman and Editor-in-Chief of Forbes Media, which publishes Forbes magazine with a circulation of nearly 1 million readers. Combined with Forbes Asia, Europe, and the company's licensed editions, and the magazine reaches close to 6 million global readers. And Forbes.com, of course, also reaches 70 million unique monthly visitors. And our guest has also been one of the Republican contenders for president. So we are, of course, talking about Mr. Steve Forbes. And Steve is the son of longtime Forbes publisher Malcolm Forbes and the grandson of that publication's founder, B.C. Forbes. And he has been also, amongst all the other things he's been doing, also written several books, and the latest out, Reviving America, how repealing Obamacare, replacing the tax code, and reforming the Fed will restore hope and prosperity. Well, please say it so, Steve. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Good to be with you.
I'm glad you're with us. Thank you for taking some time with us. And so let's just dive right in there. Everybody hopes for a revitalization of this country, and there are a lot, of course, competing ideas and policy initiatives and people with all sorts of different agendas. So in a nutshell, I know that you, of course, have run for president yourself in the past. It was twice. And you have your own ideas, and a lot of them very popular about how to achieve that. But in a nutshell, what would you say to our listeners about how can we revive our economy and our country?
Well, that's why we wrote the book, which you mentioned, Reviving America, was to do the three big three reforms on getting this economy truly moving again. As you know, we're stuck in second gear.
Yeah.
Just can't seem to move forward. We get a good economic report followed by a disappointing one. And so there's a lot of anxiety and frustration out there that we can't get this economy back in high gear. The big three, we start with health care, Obamacare, because health is about 18 to 20% of the economy.
Sure.
People are across the political spectrum are frustrated. You go to a hospital, you wonder whether the specialists talk to one another, or the hospitalists talk to one another when they change shifts. When you say don't put a drug on, certain medication for your aunt, they end up doing it anyway. So there's a lot of frustration about cost, about attention to patient care and the like.
Yeah.
And so we analyze it as the problem is that it's all a third-party payer system. By third-party payer, we mean the real customers are the insurance companies, the bureaucracy, and, of course, employers play a huge role. But the patient ends up at the end of the line.
Yeah, that's true.
The proof of it is the lack of free markets. The proof of it is when you go to a clinic or hospital and you ask in advance what treatment's going to cost, you get a very strange look. It means one of two things. Either you're uninsured or you're just plain crazy. Why would you want to know the price they ask? What's
right.
For you? Just let the insurance company take care of it. So we propose a series of reforms to put the patient back in charge, everything from nationwide shopping for health insurance, equalized tax treatment so companies don't get more of a tax advantage than you as an individual, equal the playing field there. Having more transparency, having hospitals and clinics post prices for all of their services and treatments. So if a hospital charges $2,000 for an MRI and you find another one that can do a similar one for $500, that can be very valuable information to consumer patients. And transparency in things like death from infections. Hospitals should post each month how many patients die from infections received after they enter the hospital, after they're admitted to the hospital. It's quite shocking. So these basic reforms will go a long ways to getting real consumerism, real entrepreneurship, and the patient finally being sovereign.
Well, there's a great analogy, Steve, you made me think of as you were describing that. And you're right. It's the third-party system, and the consumer's not directly involved. And they're kind of, again, just a patient in the process. And so it made me think of when you buy a car and how much people do research on the cars. They look at the reviews, they look at how reliable are they, what their warranties are, the problems, and then when they go to buy them, they don't just pay, most people don't just pay the sticker price. There's a process there of negotiation. So when you're actually writing the check or going to be the one paying the bill, you're much more involved. And I think that, there's something we could borrow from that analogy for healthcare for sure.
Absolutely. And the proof of where the patient lies in this food chain is that the crummiest motel in America wouldn't dare put you in a room with another guest with a curtain in between. They routinely do in a hospital.
Yeah.
Or give
Awkward.
you a robe that looks like it came from a Salvation Army dump.
Hey, listen, I've put one of those robes on before. I think they're made of paper, if you ask me. I don't know. That's very funny.
But, healthcare is basic. If we do these reforms, we turn what looks like a hopeless liability in terms of financial obligations now and in the future into the most dynamic industry ever, growth industry ever, because healthcare is personal.
Sure.
And by having and getting real free markets in there, we know free markets always turn scarcity into abundance if they're allowed to do so. We see that with smartphones today. As you know, the first one for Motorola cost $3,995. Now you can get a perfectly good smartphone way beyond just voice for $100, $150, soon going down to $50.
Right. Well, you know what? We'll wrap here on the healthcare because I know we've got some other subjects to get to. But the other thing that it's already being done in healthcare. Some of this consumerism, or where the consumer is directly involved in it, and a great example of that is in the things that the insurance companies don't pay for. The elective,
exactly.
The plastic surgery. So think about the research that people do for plastic surgery and looking at outcomes, looking at price. And I've had people tell me, oh, no, I'm going to this other place. I'm going, to another country because I can get it for less than getting it here in the United States because they are using their own dollar. So they're being very careful. And we got to put the consumer back in control.
Yeah, and one of the things about healthcare is if you start to get a patient-oriented, rational system, is you also have more effective safety nets instead of the hodgepodge system we have today.
That's true.
And we do it for food with food stamps and food banks. No reason why we can't have a sensible system in healthcare. So you don't have to worry about if you get a chronic condition or something goes terribly wrong that you're going to be left on the side.
Good point. And, the other question, this would be a little bit of a devil's advocate question that maybe people have on their minds, Stephen. If we replace or unplug Obamacare because it's not working or it's not achieving, and there's an Investor Business Daily editorial out recently here that had a number of statistics talking about how the insurers are having to raise prices and it's not working maybe as originally planned. What do you say to the folks out there that say, well, if we get rid of Obamacare, people are going to lose coverage? What then do we do about that part of it?
Well, they won't lose coverage because you're going to have insurers willing to go after real customers and real markets. You can couple it with the safety net of, what they call high-risk pools.
Okay.
Where if you can't get insurance, like they do in many states with automobiles, you get a subsidized premium for insurance. You can get away from these plans on the Obama exchanges. Mm-hmm. Talk about some of these bronze plans.
Right.
Yes, they subsidize the premium,
right,
but the deductibles are so catastrophically high.
Sure.
People are getting less access to health care than they had when they had no insurance.
There'll
be plenty of insurance out there, insurers willing to write policies, especially when they know that you are the one in charge.
Yeah.
They have to satisfy you, the patient, not the government, not the employer. You're sovereign.
That's true.
So no safety net's going to go away.
Right. Okay.
In fact, we'll start to get a more rational system where consumers have real choice. Choosing your own insurance policy. Why shouldn't you be able to choose your own policy, what you want in it? For example,
right.
I'm 68. I don't need pregnancy services. Never have, never will.
I hope not. That would be weird. Well, one final thought, and we'll get to another subject, Steve, is another example of, the free market working is you have some doctors that have what they call this concierge type practice, and the patient pays an extra premium like a membership directly to the doctor. And you know what? Those people are already having a major choice with the healthcare, and the doctor-patient relationship is very different than maybe others out there under the insurance model.
That's right. And when you have a system that is geared to the patient, you don't get the feeling you have today when you go into a overworked doc who spends half his time filling out paperwork like a bureaucrat. You won't have this hurried feeling where doc's under pressure, you're under pressure, get it all out because you only have 5 minutes. It's a unpleasant experience for everybody.
Yeah, don't get me started on that one, Steve. I've walked out of more than one doctor office. If you're just joining us, Mr. Steve Forbes is on the line, chairman and editor-in-chief of Forbes Media, and he has another great book out, Reviving America. We're getting a taste of it today. Reviving America, How Repealing Obamacare, Replacing the Tax Code, and Reforming the Fed will restore hope and prosperity. We're going to get to the tax code and the Fed right after this quick break and word from our sponsors.